Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third skills webinar of the Harrow Fit to Bid programme. So the third one this month. Today we will be talking about writing public sector bids and tenders. So again, we welcome our colleagues from the Heathrow SME Academy and any new participants today. The webinar should take about, well, it will be an hour. We will hopefully have some time for chat, but if not, my details are there and you can always message or call me afterwards. And as I've said before on the previous sessions that we've run, we don't send out the slides afterwards, but this session is being recorded. And Brandwin, we have a YouTube channel, so Brandwin Business Support. And after the webinar, so early next week sometime, this webinar will be uploaded. So you can go on there and you'll be able to watch this. And if you've missed all the others, you'll be able to watch those as well. So just to let you know. So I'll just run over this again. Some of you who've been on the previous sessions, you will know who I am. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Tracy James. I'm the Programme Manager for the Harrow Fit to Bid programme. I'm a business advisor. I've worked for Brandwin for about 4 years now, and I also run my own business consultancy. I also run a networking group based in Ruislip, actually. But we welcome any SMEs from across the borough, Hillingdon, Harrow, Watford, etc. So welcome to attend that. Quite a bit of experience in the SME sector, delivered with the business programme, and worked on a few of the Brandwin Fit to Bid programmes from sort of Hertfordshire through to Brent, Hillingdon, and Hammersmith and Fulham. So I know some of you have seen me before, but if you're first time here, then that's just a little bit about me and my background. Okay, so today, we should be about an hour. The agenda today is quite a lot to go through, as you'll probably know. Writing public sector bids and tenders is quite involved, and for some of you, it will be the first time you're actually looking at this. So today we will go through the things listed here. So we'll talk a little bit about the terminology, the types of tender documents. We'll have an example of ITT as an invitation to tender, what the requirements actually are. The evaluation methodology, known as MEET, I think it's actually MAT now, it's changed slightly. Most advantageous tender. We'll talk around tender timelines, which is important. And then sort of your own tender business model, the jobs to be done. We'll discuss ESG, where you currently are with ESG and what is required for public sector bids. We'll talk about social value, and then talk about also bidding via consortium and partnerships, because we are aware that some of you are small businesses. It's not something that you've done before, and you may not be able to fulfill the requirements of the tender, but there's always an opportunity to partner with somebody else so you can actually deliver that. So that's what we're going to cover today. Again, many of you would have seen this slide. It's the programme methodology, how to submit a winning bid, and we sort of work through this programme. So we're sort of here, number 3, at the bidding skills section. And we go on through to sort of the one-to-one tender advice sessions, and then the Meet the Buyer event. We had one last November in Rayners Lane, and we've got a next one coming up next month, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on. You will be receiving a link to actually register for that. I believe you will, if you've not already received, you will receive an online bid capability assessment. If you do receive that, when you receive that, do fill that out, because that gives us more of an idea of where you are in the whole process and how we can sort of help you and direct you through the one-to-one sessions. Okay, so let's go back slightly. So public sector versus private sector, and there's quite a few differentiators on this, and we'll just go through some of them now. Starting off with budgets and funding. So the difference between these private sector and the public sector. In the private sector, it really aligns with what the business requirements are. Want to start a new project, it's what's required for the business and where that funding actually derives from. With public sector, budgets are allocated annually and they're not changed. So once they've been awarded the budget, that is it, and those don't change until the next funding round comes through the following year. So at the outset, local authorities know what their budgets are, and then they decide how that budget is to be allocated on various contracts across that year. Regulations, private sector, typically low regulations, according to the business requirements, really, but they're not as set in stone as public sector, and they are restricted by legislation, which can be quite tight, quite long-winded, but by the very nature of any sort of government contract, whether it's local government, central government, there will always be a lot of regulations, and any of you who've been through this process already will, I'm sure you're nodding your heads and you can account for that as well. But it's right, the regulations have to be tight, it's public money. So it's just right that regulations have to be in place, because there has to be reporting and everything else to show that the money has been spent accordingly. The process as well, the specified process, typically with the private sector, starts sort of through a sort of proposal submission process, whereby in the public sector there is a specified process, and as I will come on to that in the terminology shortly, and actually it's quite often given specific timelines as well. So it's very, very specified and a detailed process. Timelines, there are set timelines in the public sector, and they are set to those timelines, whereby in the private sector, purchasing is much more flexible. Transparency, freedom of information. So in terms of the public sector, anything you will need to know about either the contract or the provider, the local authority is available. So, the sort of freedom of information, you can go onto their websites, onto gov.uk, you will find everything you need to find out about the particular council or public sector body that you will be working with. So all of that information is available. Versus sort of the private sector, there's some sort of information available, but not as much as in the private sector. Sometimes in the competitive pressures, there's not always so much transparency in the information. The primary motivation, well, for the private sector, it's a return on investment. That's their main focus. For the public sector, spending money wisely and fairly, and of course, making savings as well. Stakeholders, private sector, very few and usually identifiable. Public sector, many stakeholders, and a very wide base. So there can quite often be lots of parties involved. And the focus, as we just said there, for the public sector, it's reducing spending and saving money. And of course, we hear all the time how local authorities are under pressure with their finances and saving money. It's not always about cuts. It's just about drastic cuts. It's about getting value for the money they are spending, and just being a little bit more economical. Whereas on the other hand, on the private sector, it's about increasing profit margins. So just sort of an overview of the differences there between the two sectors. But of course, today we are focusing on the public sector route. We've covered this before in some of the previous sessions we've had, is the key issues facing SMEs, and we do hear this, and through some of the one-to-ones that we do, and when we meet you guys at the events or meet the bar events or other networking events, we talk about bid for contracts and public sector, and there does seem to be this sort of view that SMEs don't have a chance, they don't get looking. That now is not true. If you're able to meet the criteria of the tender, then you have as much chance as anybody else. Back in the day, there was a perception that it was dominated by the big companies. Maybe in some cases, yes, that is a case, depending on the size and the type of the contract. But that's not to say that SMEs don't have a chance. So you have as much a chance as anybody else. And I showed you before and show you later on this morning examples of people we've worked through, who've come through this program, who actually have won contracts with local authorities. So yeah, it's not necessarily dominated by big companies. I won't go through all of these because we have a lot to get through today. But again, some of these we touched on. You can't reach the right people. There's some practical criteria in the tender that stop you from being considered. And again, it may be that you're a small business, your finances, your accounts don't allow you to, or would prevent you from meeting the criteria for that particular tender. But that's when we'll talk about partnerships later on. As we've said, again, reviews, testimonials, all really, really important. But time constraints seems to be one of the big barriers, especially for sort of smaller businesses. Having that time available to actually devote to plan properly. But once you've done it, and you've done it once, it just makes your life much easier once you do it again. So you have to kind of lock in that kind of mindset and say, right, okay, this is where we're going to go. We're going to allocate time, and you do it from day one. And this is what we're going to do. And once you do it, you're going to get used to it and get the team on board. And dare I say, it even becomes a good bit of fun. You don't hear that word very often, fun, and writing public sector bids, but it can be, and it gives you a real insight into your business and how you'll see from when you start writing them where the strengths of your business are and weaknesses of your business, and where you need to make improvements. But again, we'll talk about that later. And then, obviously the ones that have no idea of what to put into their tender, into the response, make it a winning one. Well, that's why you're here, and that's why we have the Meet the Buyer, for you to actually connect with people face to face. And so through these skills webinars, it should start you on the track to actually being able to focus on the business and say, right, okay, what do we need to do? And how do we start this process? Okay, so a little bit of tender terminology. We covered this slightly last week. If you're here for the first time, we'll run through it again. So there will be a pre-qualification questionnaire. So when you register for the tender, a pre-qualification questionnaire will come out to you. That's everything about your business, who you are, your finances, your team, what your services, your product, where you're based, your ethos, your view, your values, everything about the business goes into that pre-qualification questionnaire. Once that's then returned, if it's acceptable, then you will receive an invitation to tender. Now, this is the key document. Everything about the contract will be included in the invitation to tender. Everything will be in there, and that is your kind of your go-to. It will explain everything about the contract, what their sort of outcomes are, what they're looking to achieve. So that is your kind of your crucial document. There may be some others, and request for proposal, request for quotation. Quite often these go into, and again, depending on the level of the contract, and a certain level, I think Harrow's 29,995 under 30,000. It may just be a request for proposal or a request for quotation. Contracts over that value will go through the full tender process. There's also framework and dynamic purchasing systems. This is slightly different. This is for probably essentially the same thing. And these are for large projects, maybe the building of a new hospital or university, or something large infrastructure projects, where they will open a framework. So from the outset, they will want the builders, the plumbers, the groundworks, the landscapers, the interiors, the fit out guys and girls as well. So they know at the outset they've basically got a pool of contractors that they can actually work with. And in some ways, once you're on a framework, it's easier. So you do all that kind of legwork to start work. But once you're on it, you're on it. So if it's a contract for 5 or 10 years, you're on that framework. I guess throughout the time you have to update as your business changes. But to get onto a framework is a really good thing. Again, it's not an easy process. Well, not easy. It can be quite time consuming, but once you've done it and you're on a framework, that's what you want. And most people I speak to say, I just want to get onto the framework. So those are the different things. And Ian, you go through, you look, you register on the tenders, you go through to Harrow, and when you meet them at the event next month, the colleagues there from the procurement team, do speak to them, the opportunity to speak to them about the framework agreements. Again, you can look on their website, see what's on there, and there'll be instructions there to how to register for their framework agreement. So that's just a little bit around the terminology. Okay, so the invitation to tender, so the ITT, as I said, this is the most important document, and this is what it will most likely contain, because it will be the introduction. So it will tell you what the contract is about, why they are planning to, what the purpose is of the contract. It could be, developing green spaces or improving, regenerating some areas across the borough. So all the background information you will know will be in that introduction section. The tender conditions, the legal parameters surrounding the tender, that could be anything from sort of, certain types of finances or insurance, accreditations that may be required. If it's in construction, there may be different types of, as I say, sort of accreditations or associations that are required. And now the specification. So this is the really key part. Okay, is the description of the supplies, the service, and the works to be provided. And that's key. And when you receive your invitation tender, that's the point where you get your highlighter pen and you go through and you highlight all the key points. And there'll be instructions on there, so how you do it. It's all set out very, very clearly. They're quite lengthy documents, but it will be set out really clearly, which is what you need to do. And I say your highlighter pen will be your best friend. You just highlight all the pertinent points as you go through. There'll be quality of tender response, questions to be answered by the bidder that they will ask you. And we mentioned last week as well about when you're writing your tender response, about the clarity of language as well. So really, really important that you remember clarity of language, no kind of waffling, being really, really to the point and using that active language rather than passive language. So we discussed that last week. If you were not on the call last week, do have a look on the YouTube channel and watch that webinar, because it gives you a lot of information around the kind of language and how to write the tender. Pricing and delivery, yeah, absolutely crucial. There will be a fixed price for this any contract. What your pricing looks at, how you break down on the pricing. As we've said before, it's not always a race to the bottom on pricing, but it has to be clarity around that. And of course, the delivery schedule. The formal tender, so that's a declaration to be signed by yourselves, a certificate of non-collusion. So you've not, declaration that you've not colluded with any other bidder on the tender. But again, if it's a partnership, we're working with, that's something different. But yeah, no collusion, that's not allowed. And then it was, hopefully if you're the one that's been awarded the contract, because you've done everything we've said in the previous webinars and what we're going to include in this webinar, then you'll get a draft of the proposed contract to be signed by yourself, and away you go before the works actually start. So there are, on the ITT, there will be some requirements, and there are some, essentially with public sector contracts, grants for mandatory exclusion. I mean, it says there under the public contracts regulation 2015, we must exclude any organisation that is guilty of any of the offences in regulations. I'm going to read them all out, and I don't know them all off the top of my head. Do any of these grounds for rejection apply to your organisation? So essentially what that means, and of course you have to be honest here, if you answer yes, so if I know, for example, one of the key players in your business, one of the directors, had some criminal offence of maybe fraud or other sort of illegal activities, or you were trading in one of the geographical excluded zones, that would be grounds for immediate exclusion. So again, this will be in the ITT document. So you have to be honest, because if it's researched and it's found out, then it doesn't look very good. Grounds for discretionary exclusion. Again, do any of the issues listed in regulations apply to organisations? So this could be something like, does any of the directors have a CCG against their name that has been settled, but it's still on their records? Again, just be honest and open. If that is the case, be honest and open, and they will most likely have a conversation about you. They'll ask more information about it, and if they feel yes, they're happy it's been settled, just waiting for it to be removed off the records, then it wouldn't necessarily exclude you from taking part in the process. But they may continue to allow you through the process, but they can do research, and they will do research on all of the directors of the business. So just be honest, and provide sort of full details in any other kind of action. A lot of this is about transparency and honesty in building those relationships from early on. So just something to be aware of there. Okay, financial information. Of course, they will look at financial information, and it may be a case that in the ITT, in the invitation tender, there is a requirement of a minimum turnover. I don't know, it could be 50 grand, 100 grand, 250, a million. It all depends on the contract, 10 million. It all depends on the contract and what it is. So they will want, they will want to know, what is your turnover. It's not for the year, it's just an example. March 31st, 2021. What is your annual turnover? Who your accountants are, your bankers. You most likely will run a credit check on your organisation. And again, any who receives a medium or high may be excluded or asked to submit further information. It might just be a one-off with supplier or something, as long as you can evidence and you can explain that. So yeah, financial information will most likely be required, especially for the higher value contracts. They just want to know that the company that they're going to be working with, supplier they're going to be working with, they're robust. They're going to offer you a 3-year contract, for example. They want to know that you're going to be there for the 3 years, and partway through, due to financial issues, you can't fulfill the contract. It's something they take quite seriously. So yeah, if you're all in good shape, then that's a tick. Again, insurance, make sure your insurances are in place. It's quite interesting, actually. Do look at your insurance documents. Of course, they're reviewed annually. I did speak to somebody going back a couple of years, who actually wasn't aware that, or didn't know, or anyway, didn't have insurance in place, and he was dealing with members of the public. So I said, you need to get the insurance in place right away. It's a basic business requirement. So make sure your insurances are in place. You know, your employer's liability, public liability, professional liability, whichever, maybe 1, 2, or 3 apply to you. And there may be, on the target, there may be requirements for a certain cover, you know, a certain level of cover. So do check your insurances and make sure and talk through with your insurers if there's something you're not actually sure. Yeah, so that's it. And yeah, additional suitability, say anything that may exclude you for any sort of financial reasons, or capacity or expertise, or any other threat or risk. Just make sure that you comply with all the practices that they are requesting. So we now come on to ITT requirements. When you receive a document, so some of you may be aware of this if you've gone through this process before, but it's the first time when you receive a document, it will be broken down into what we call the technical method statement. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see a weighting. Okay, so this is how much weighting they give to each aspect of the contract. And again, there'll be certain words that will be, answer this in 500 words or 200 words, whatever it may be. Service delivery. So you can see there 25%. So this is absolutely key. This is where you need to focus a lot of your attention. Okay, please provide a detailed method statement outlining how you propose to deliver the service works in question against the specification requirements, to overview the training you would provide, through breakdown of the module for each course, and detailing how you would mitigate against any risk or challenges. I think actually this is the one we applied for. It's for business training, so this is their back course. It was the business support program. This is the actual tender that we applied for to deliver this course. Okay, so you'll see there 25% breakdown. So you, again, get your highlighter out, highlight those important bits, and then you focus on that, answer that clearly. Okay. Mobilisation plan, please submit mobilisation plan to include tasks being taken. I guess that's 10%. Right, so you still need to answer those questions, but not as in much detail. So, if the whole response is, I don't know, say 750 words or 1,000 words, whatever, then you're going to allocate the amount of words that you put into each of these sections according to the weighting. Again, you see there management and structure and information. Please provide the management structure of the organisation. Who would you use to manage the delivery of the programme, state the qualification. So all of this, so your management team, whoever is going to be on the contract, it's almost kind of like a bit of a sort of CV of your management team. So any real experience and any other key personnel to be used on the contract. The experience, so you see this is weighted at 20% as well. So they want to see what experience you've had. And that includes, testimonials, that will include case studies. So this is related, so it's not construction at all. So it's related diverse range of organisations in the last 3 years. So again, a lot of weighting should be, and a lot of attention should be given to this. Again, then here we've got sort of business engagement and equalities. They're both at 10%. Again, still very important. And get your highlighter and go through it. And down here as well as the equalities, how your companies engage with SME companies here. So it's just they want to see the what you as a business are doing, and when you're writing your response, you equate it or value it to the weighting level. On this one, so we've got here the London, just sort of under sort of equalities and business engagement. Quite often now you will see social value that will have a rating of maybe 10 or 15%. Sometimes I've seen it up to 20%. So, for the value of the contract. social value, which we will come on to a little bit later, that now is playing more and more, ESG is playing more and more a part of weighting on contracts. So just something to think about there. One of them might be the London living wage. Quite often, if you're a business working in London, you have staff in London, are you actually paying the London living wage, which is £14.80 now, I think now. If you don't pay your staff the London living wage, do you propose to? Make sure you're aware of that. This has been asked in the contract. So, you know, if you don't do it, why don't you do it? Are you thinking about doing it? When are you thinking about doing it? So again, it's just something, I mean, it might be different. This may not be in the contract that you receive, but it's just a view so you can understand what they're looking at and the weighting, what importance that you put on each of those weightings. Okay, so we'll move on to something called MEET. It's the most economically advantageous tender, although now I think it actually can change to that. Most advantageous tender. And quite often it's, you know, tenders are evaluated and scored on a combination of price and quality. And I do hear people say, even through this programme, they go, oh, no, I'm not going to do it because it's just a race to the bottom. That is not necessarily the case. Yes, you will see somewhere it will be 75% evaluated on price and 25% on quality. Doesn't mean that the quality is not there. It's still important, but the main focus here is low price. So it may be something like we see, I don't know, like facilities management, cleaning companies or something. The focus may be more on the price. Of course, the quality still needs to be there because it was a large scale contract. It comes down to the cost. The cost is important. But conversely, it may be, you know, price isn't everything. It may be, in fact, 75% of quality. I'm saying it could be in different percentages to this, could be 60-40 or 80-20, whatever it may be, but there will be the other flip of the coin where they're looking for 75% quality, so the focus is on really high quality and not so much the outcomes sort of focused on the price. So it's just going through that sort of evaluation process and measuring that against the you know, that weighted criteria I just spoke to you. So the assessment criteria, obviously, you know, it's going to be price or quality, whichever one comes to the top. The technical ability, you know, the proposed product or service, you know, accessibility, your experience of your team. Again, so that's a social value, environmental benefits. So we will come on to that again shortly. Innovation is a big thing. We've talked about that before, and in some of the other webinars to go through the brand win process, or you may have done some others for Christmas, talking about this, about innovation. How can you deliver? It's not just a case of delivering contract. Yes, we can do A, B, and C, but actually, what can you do outside of that that either saves more money, adds more value to the contract? So innovation is really, really a key thing. So it's something you're looking at, and it's not just, oh, we have AI, and AI can do everything. Yes, in some respects, AI might be an answer to a solution. It's time saving and cost saving, but it's not the be all and end all. After service sales, what do you do after the end of the contract? You just say thanks very much and off you go. Or, you know, do you follow up? Do you keep in touch with them? You check in? Do you do reviews and assessments to make sure whatever it is you've delivered is still working and fit for the purpose? Yeah, your supply chain and your logistics, so we'll look at all of that, and ability to deliver on time, absolutely crucial. Right, okay, so when we're looking at the tender evaluation methodology, of course, this is where you want to be. This is the scoring matrix. So nobody wants to be down the bottom. There you go, 0. Completely failed to meet the standard. Response significantly deficient, no response at all. No, we don't want to see anybody down there. We want to see all of you up here in the 4s or the 5s. Okay, so 5s really are going to be the ones that win. So you want excellent. So you exceed the required standards, whatever they're looking for. And that's what I just said about the innovation. need to exceed what they're looking for. Response answers, you answer the questions with precision and relevance. Remember, we talked about that last week, about being absolutely relevant to the contract that you are bidding for. You may have a whole wealth of experience and other things. That's all very nice, but when you're actually writing, you've only got so many words to actually put your point across. Make sure that is actually relevant to the contract you're applying for. And again, that includes improvement through innovation and added value. Added value is key. It's about what value you can give to your customer, to that end user. Absolutely key. And so some of the other ones, I mean, we won't go down to threes and beyond, because you're not going to meet the criteria if you're sitting in any of those brackets. The good, you meet the required standard, comprehensive in terms of detail, and it's been relevant to the question. But wherever possible, you just take the time and focus, because you want to be in that top scoring box there in the fives. Right, timetables, absolutely crucial, because as we know, when we're already through January, blink of an eye, time goes very, very fast. So these are just example dates here, read the timetable and carefully, and put those notes in your diary, in your calendar, and ideally reminders 2 days before, because these timers, particularly for public sector, are set in stone. Okay, you cannot miss them. So the date the tender is published, site visits, there'll be clarification, so you can ask when you register and you applied. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. There will be, you have to ask them by the clarification deadline. So you want to ask well in advance, so you can get the answers in advance, to enable you to put your tender together. Submission deadline, crucial. We mentioned it again last week. It has to be, make sure it's all done the day before. So we've seen so many people who, last minute, it's midday, and it's 11:58, panicking, deadline's 12 o'clock, not a minute after 12, it won't even be, bang, cut off, that's it, 12 o'clock. Always submit your tender ahead of the deadline, as much as you possibly can. So, saying that there will be an evaluation period, and then there will be an announcement, and you may have to go in, do some presentations, and then they will send the notice of award and the contract start date. So these are really crucial. When you get the dates from the ITT, you will know, and then you work to that timeline from day one. Okay, some of this will be covered sort of later on, but we've mentioned this before, and it's focusing on what the buyer wants, okay, not what you want to sell. So we won't go through all of these, where time is cracking on. But one of the key things we will pick up here is submitting really good, is uncover the desired outcomes. What is it the customer needs? You will see that through the ITT. You'll see what they need, but do more research. And so we spoke about that last week as well, about doing as much research if you can. So, for example, if in this case you're looking to submit a bid with Harrow Council, look at what their plan is. What is their plan for the borough over the next few years? And there is something called the Harrow Plan. You can find it on the website. What is their outcome? They're doing a lot with regenerating old buildings and parks and green spaces. So what are they looking for? What are their big outcomes? And then when you understand what they are looking for, you can tailor your response accordingly. So it shows that you understand what they're looking for as a borough, what they actually want to achieve, and how can you actually fit into that, and what you're going to supply or deliver. So it understands that you are talking their language. I mean, we won't, as others, quantify as which outcomes are unmet. So say again, you can see there may have been plans that they had over the past 5 years, and actually those plans have not been met yet. So it may come into the next phase of their plan. So it is a case of actually setting aside some time and doing some research or allocating it to a member of your team. This is a project. You set aside that time scale for so once you've done it once, it's especially like the sort of pre-qualification questionnaires, when you've got all of that and you've done it once, you've got the details in your folders, in your files, it's much easier to do it next time, right? Keep up to date, what's happening with the business newsletter, what's happening in the borough, what are the objectives, what's the developments happening, why is it happening, what is their vision. So again, understanding all of that will kind of put you on the same page as them and allow you to understand exactly what they're looking for. Okay, we're not going to, this is something for you to be done. So the jobs to be done. So part of the whole process, this is something you can sort of take away. Want to take a picture of the screen, you can. So what you, as we just said, what should a customer trying to get done that will lead the outcomes they seek. So what are they trying to achieve? As I just said there, but you can find this information. What is their plans for generation, development, building a thriving community, whatever it is, and it will all be there. You can find it all. What problems are they trying to solve? Needs they're trying to satisfy? And again, what are those big outcomes? So you do that as an exercise after this, or next week, or over the coming weeks, or prior to the event next month. Take some time, have a look. So particularly Harrow one, if you're on the SME Academy and you're not based in Harrow, have a look at your again, you can do the same sort of process with Heathrow. What are they looking to achieve? We know there's going to be a new runway, it's in planning, it's in planning stage right now, or even your local borough if you're not in the borough of Harrow. So it's just setting aside that time and really focusing on that. So right, okay, what is it? What are they trying to do, and how do we come in, and how can we actually sort of fulfill what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to solve, and what are their big outcomes. Once you've got this, you stand yourself in really, really good stead because you understand what they're trying to do. Right, okay. Excuse me 1 second. We've got a bit of a technical issue. Right, okay, here we go. So ESG, environmental, social and governance, as I mentioned this earlier. So, it's a collective term for a business impact on the environment and society. This has become to the forefront a lot more now, globally, not just locally. It's, it's a term most of you as business owners, most of you will have used this term or, heard this term, actually. It covers everything. The company leadership, executive pay, audits, internal controls, stakeholder rights, measures how your business integrates environmental, social and governance practice into its operations, as well as your business model. And local authorities are, so it's become a real focus for them now, and they want to understand how your business meets ESG requirements. I mean, we sort of look at it as a kind of do no harm. So your business does no harm to the environment. It doesn't discriminate against, staff or, ethnic groups, anything like that. You're inclusive. You're doing well for the environment. You're doing well for your community and for the people that you actually employ. And it's becoming more and more a focus on in the tender process. And governance as well, that's the other thing as well. It's not just the environmental and the social, the governance around it. It's how you actually record what you're actually doing as a business. So just some examples here, actually, just something you to consider. So environmental, energy uses and efficiency, climate change, we hear a lot about this now, waste reduction, biodiversity loss, greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprint. We hear a lot about this. And there is actually something you can do. There's a company, welfare, called Profit Impact, and they actually, profitimpact.co.uk, they actually, I think it's a free tool to use, and it's called Know Your Number. And it's just an online assessment that you just go and it asks you these questions about your business, about the environmental side of your business, and it gives you a score out of 100. It's a really good thing to do. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. But yeah, go on there, have a look at it, and you can see where you are as a business. So if you are applying for public sector tenders, you can see where you are as a business and where you're going. It's quite an interesting thing to do, and it highlights, you've seen them schools of 14 and 12, one with 9. But others, are doing their bit for the environment and score a lot higher. So it is a good thing to do, and evidence that that you're on this journey. As we know, social, so paying fair wages, employee benefits, community engagement, and your equality of staff. And again, all of this should be documented in your business, evidence that's what you're doing. And of course, governance, how the compliance, ethical business practices, accounting with transparency. So governance is a key thing around. So if it's something that you've not really paid much attention to, I would suggest again, as part of the, I know we're all busy, but as part of your business development for this year, this is something to actually focus on. So yes, some ESG takeaways. Start with a holistic view. Sustainability extends beyond simply environmental issues. In existing issue frameworks are a useful way of detailing or looking at potential indicators. So you can see, if you look at some of the frameworks that are in place already, they will tell you what is required as far as the ESG strategy is concerned. So you can go on there and have a look, and you'll say, yes, we're doing that, no, we're not doing that, well, we should be doing that, and we'll need to do that if we want to stand a chance of getting onto the framework. So yeah, do a little bit of research there. Define, we might go through all of these now, but just define what ESG material you should be collecting, what data you're kind of looking for, how you track and monitor that. I say there are companies out there that can help you with this as well. And take action, make it somebody in your team, make it their responsibility to look at the ESG. It's actually quite a, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, it's quite a sort of soulful thing to do when you feel like you're actually doing good. And I know we're all busy and we just go day to day about our business practices, but it is something that is going to be more and more a requirement for your business. Right, so social value, again, we do have some handouts, not handouts, but some bid guidelines sent to you, or you'll get anyway at the end of the programme. It's around social value. If you have a one-to-one session, we can talk about social value, and I can send you some of the guidelines. Just a few examples here. Promoting local skills and employment for all. Yes, absolutely. It's building that community wealth in your local borough. You can employ local people, or help those apprentices, young people. Big problem now with young people trying to find employment. If you can, upskill local people, brilliant. If you give free training sessions, or just something to help the local community. Again, we say environment, cleaner green spaces. Some people say, oh, yeah, we plant trees, which is great. The earth needs more trees. But it's not just about, we send a company to plant trees. It's more about being quite involved in hands-on in what you're doing, really being a part of your community rather than just planting trees. Yes, it's a good thing, but that's not always the answer. I know a lot of you work with local charities, and you go out, you do outreach support. So, all of that is great, and it's becoming, businesses are leaning into this more and more. And it's not just to tick the box, it's actually because businesses want to do that and build a better community for all of us. These are just a quick example of the guidelines here that we've said, help you win new contracts. This is just about, maximising social value. Bids within your business, so that is something that we can send out to you if required. Okay, so a SWOT analysis, some of you may already do this in your business. If you don't, it's a great thing to do. If you have a one-to-one or you book a one-to-one, it's something we can discuss into your one-to-one session. If you already had a one-to-one and we haven't talked about this, do this before you actually it's good to do anyway, and it's good to do really at the start of every year business. What are your strengths? Do we do in this case in terms of actually bidding for a contract? Do you fully meet the requirements? Can you add value, score highly? What are your weaknesses? If you don't fully satisfy the criteria, identify what your weaknesses are. What are the opportunities from this? It's a highly valued contract, so that would make an impact to your business. It's prestigious. You're working with one of the local authorities. It shows you're trusted. And any major threats that you think that may impact you. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A SWOT analysis, something every business should do actually on a regular basis, and review it. Go back to it, review it, and update it as you go along. There may be some weaknesses there that you can actually change into strengths. So really highly recommend that's something you look at. So quickly moving on to collaborations and partnerships or sustainable partnerships. There's an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Okay, so essentially what we're talking about here, if you're a small business and you feel you don't actually have all the skills to deliver the contract, you can work together with somebody else. You can collectively put in a bid with someone else. The local authority will only contract with one entity, so there has to be one member. I mean, it could be 2, 3, 4 of you working together to deliver this contract, but there has to be one single legal entity. So one of you would have to say, yeah, okay, we'll be the headline, as it were. So I say it's a partnership, a consortium with a lead partner. So essentially, you'd act as a consortium with a lead partner with nominated sub-specialists. So if it's something that you were thinking about, then you would have to decide between you who would be the lead and then who would be the subcontractors, because the councils will only deal with one legal entity. It makes sense in terms of finances. Your finances may not be in the stage where you can bid for this alone, but coming together to strengthen that sort of financial support in the government is an option it's something to consider. And now the key thing here is the bid writing. It must be in a cohesive document. Don't have one company writing one part and another company writing that part. You need to come together and write it together. It has to read as a single document because everybody writes in different terminology, different expressions, different kind of language. So if this is something you are doing, then make sure that it is clear and it's not disjointed. Do not, as I've said before, you can run it through AI if you want to. Do not do a copy and paste and then send it, because that will be picked up straight away. That is an AI produced document. You can use it as guidelines, but you need to put it in your own language, in your way of writing. If it's just computer produced, that would be picked up straight away. Okay, so well, we've only got a few minutes left, so I'll just go through this really quickly. Top tips: displacing existing suppliers. You can go through already, have a look, see who's there, see who the existing suppliers are, and use the data. It will all be on the website. You can see already what contracts are currently in place, what the contract award was, when that contract finishes, so you can basically price your bids competitively. You can look at, you can then do research on who the existing incumbent is, who they are. It's not to do anything kind of underhand, but it's just to understand who the existing suppliers are and how you can actually kind of displace them. Okay, so your tender journey, I'm very conscious we are almost out of time actually. Just go through this. So yeah, this is a tender journey. So focus on what you're doing. Start with, focus your efforts where it matters. Think big, start small. And can we do it? Yes, can we win it? Absolutely, you can win it. We've got examples of people who have been through this process and have won contracts. So again, this is something I showed last week, satisfies all, you've got to make sure you satisfy all the ITT requirements, the proposal's written well, and you've got evidence of uniqueness, the capability, what makes you different, what value can you actually add to this contract. So top tips, action plan. So after this session, go away, write down the 3 top actions that you're going to do to put yourself in the position now to start bidding for contracts. As I've said, all our previous webinars are here for, you can watch them back on the YouTube channel. But I want to just skip through these bits because I want to one-to-one sessions. If you've not had a one-to-one session, contact me or email me afterwards. We can book you in for a session. We use an action card to record all the data, and that is then sent to you for follow-up to go through. There's some guidelines there. I just want to go through. This is just an example of Meet the Buyer events that we've done. So lots and lots. And so we are partners at the with Heathrow, the Heathrow Business Summit. I just want to, right, this is what I want to come on to because we've literally got a minute or so left. The next Meet the Buyer event is on the 26th of February, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, the Zoroastrian Centre for Europe. And that's on Alexandra Avenue, Rayners Lane. Okay, you will be sent a link out today or tomorrow to register for this event. I strongly recommend that you attend. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to meet the procurement teams, the economic development team at the council, and also a host of buyers that will be there. It's focused on the construction industry, but if you're not a builder or a plasterer or whatever, it doesn't prevent you from attending this event. It's free to attend. It's great for you to make contacts, and it may be another service that might be IT or something like that. That again, building, buildings, you need to have IT. You need to have that kind of infrastructure there. So do attend this. So the link will come out in the next day. It may even be out this afternoon. As soon as you get it, do register for that event. And so, yeah, these are just a few of the suppliers before that have come through. These are people who have won contracts coming through this programme. So it does work. There you go. Develop relationships with decision makers and grow your business. Just quickly, the Meet the Buyer event. The next seminar is webinar Pitching for Success, 25th of Feb. Again, you will get a link for that. And that's the day before the event, so it helps you prepare for when you meet the buyer the next day. So 21st to 26th of February, get those dates in your calendar. And there we are, just 1 minute to spare. So I don't think we're going to have time for the chat, if there's anything you want to put in the chat, but my details are there. Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, thank you everybody for attending. So my details are there. Do contact me if you've not booked your one-to-one session yet. We've only got until the end of next month really to get them in. So they're funded by the council. So it's really good to do. The slides are not, we don't send out the slides, but you can watch the webinar again on the YouTube channel. But thank you everybody for attending this morning. So my details are there. Do contact me if you need any further information. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you either at the next webinar and at the Meet the Buyer event next week. Have a great day, everybody.